All right, everyone. Welcome to the second Simplysoccer podcast. Thank you all for tuning in on the second one here. And thank you all who watched the first one. I was actually very surprised to see a lot more people than I expected listened into the first podcast, which made me very happy to know that there are, more players than I thought out there that are really committed to improving and learning more about the sport and how to get better. So thank you to all who listened to that first one. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you learned something from it. So in this podcast, I'm going to be answering some questions that some of you left on the first one. So if you left a comment on the first podcast, I may be answering your question tonight. There's no guarantees that your question will be answered. I usually choose the ones I like, the ones that are being asked a lot, or, just if I can get to all of them, I will. But if your question isn't answered, don't worry. It might be answered in future podcasts, or, you can ask another question in this one, and I may answer it in future podcasts. But if you do have a question that you want answered, obviously soccer related, put it in the comments of this podcast video, I guess, in the comments section. And if I like your question, or if I have time to do it, I will answer it in more depth. So this is your chance to ask me a question and have me answer it in a little more detail to the best of my knowledge for you. So having said that, we're going to get into the first one, which I picked out. And the first question is essentially, when should you dribble and when should you play the simple options? So when should you be taking your opponent one-on-one with a skill move? And when should you be looking to do the simple option like passing to a teammate, maybe passing it back, or even clearing the ball? Okay, so the first thing, or the first part about this, there's definitely a place that you don't want to dribble, or at least you hardly ever want to dribble, and that's your own defensive third. If you're pinned back in your own, near your own 18-yard box, or the opposition is threatening to score because they keep getting close to your box, that's not you. If you win the ball, you probably don't want to be dribbling at that point. I'm not saying you just want to kick it away each time, but this is where you want to play more safe than you would on other places on the pitch if you're near your 18-yard box. Like, it's very dangerous to dribble too much in your defensive third, because if you make a mistake in your defensive third and give the ball away, you're more prone to having your opposition score on you. So that's where you want to be careful with dribbling, and I would say you want to play the simple option if you're close to your 18-yard box, because it can be very quick from losing the ball to your opponent scoring if you're close to your 18-yard box. It could be as simple as stripping you of the ball, playing a little pass to their striker, and then them scoring all within the span of 5 seconds. So you want to be very careful back there. Now, when you're in the attacking third, you have more opportunity to express yourself. Now, here's what it comes down to when it comes to dribbling and doing the simple option. Many coaches will tell you that the simple option is usually the best option. And I disagree with that. Not 100%, but in most times I disagree with that. I don't think the simple option is always the best option. The simple option usually includes doing the safe thing, whether it's passing to a teammate, whether it's, doing something like passing it backwards, passing it across, clearing the ball. These are usually the simple options. The more complex options are usually when someone beats a player one-on-one and crosses it, beats a few players and scores, or takes a shot from a distance or something of that nature. The reason I like to not do the simple option every time is, one, I think you need to be unpredictable. One of the things that many players, I think, are taught at a young age is to be too predictable. And it's not deliberately taught. Coaches don't tell players, be predictable. But they teach them to always just kind of get the ball, pass the ball, get the ball, pass the ball, get the ball, pass the ball, which makes you fairly predictable. You get the ball, defender's going to be like, well, I wonder what he or she is going to do this time. And they pass the ball. Now, this is not to discourage you from passing. That's a very important component, obviously, in soccer. You need to be able to pass effectively to be a good player. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying don't be predictable. So that means don't always take the simple option. You need to be able to gauge and look at a situation and gauge whether it's more advantageous and beneficial to your team to take the simple option or to take a different sort of action. So doing something more complex like beating a man one-on-one, or even trying or shooting, or trying to do something special, sometimes is the best thing for your team. People usually think that when you try and beat someone one-on-one, that is a selfish thing to do. I don't agree with that either. If you beat someone one-on-one and put in a dangerous cross, that is good for your team. And if the only other option was, oh, you can maybe pass it back to a teammate who will then pass it across, and then you're no closer to the goal than when you began, and in fact you're actually further away, then which seems like the better option? I would say taking the man on. There's always a risk you'll lose the ball, even when you're passing. But this is a sport where you need to take risks. The best and most unpredictable players in the world, and remember, being unpredictable is a good trait to have, usually. But these are the best players in the world. Like Messi, some of the things he does, the reason he's so good and we're like glued, our eyes are glued to the screen when we watch him is because we don't know what he's going to do. He just does amazing things so consistently that it's just so much fun to watch because he's not just going to pass, receive, backwards or sideways. He might do some combination plays. He might beat 3 players and then set up a teammate. He might do like a give and go and then another give and go right away with a teammate. He might curl one into the upper corner. You know, these aren't things a player typically does. And these are things that some players barely try to do. And that's the problem because too many players are afraid to fail. Too many players are afraid to make a mistake that in the end, they don't even attempt to do things that would separate them from other players. So when it comes down to it, here's when I think you should dribble. If you have a one-on-one situation where you have the defender isolated. Now, if you have like 3 opponents around you, it might not be the best idea to dribble. But if you are on the wing and you get played a ball and you have a ton of space, I'm always a fan of then you running right at your defender, driving towards goal. Defenders don't like this. This is not fun for them to have someone just running right at them. They have to backtrack, or they have to try and go in and take it. They go in and take it and they miss, then you're zooming by them. If they backtrack, you're getting closer to goal. So it's not a fun situation for a defender, which is why I am very pro dribbling at defenders, okay? So the real answer to this question, because again, this could be a very debatable question. Other people are going to have different opinions on this answer. I'm just giving you what I think. When it comes down to it, it is going to take a mixture of 2. I mean, there are times in games when I just get the ball, I notice that there's really going to be no advantage with me dribbling, and in fact, I might lose it if I do, and I'll just pass it back, or I'll pass it to my center mid, or I'll do something of that nature. There's nothing wrong with doing that. You just don't want to have to be doing that every single time, and you don't want to have to do it when it's unnecessary. Have you ever been watching a game where the crowd will get on the back of one player because they'll keep passing it backwards when they probably don't need to? Probably the reason they are is because they're getting nervous and they don't want to lose the ball, because then the fans will get on their back even more. But there's a reason it's just a very frustrating thing to watch, because you could have good build-up play. You know, maybe your team passes the ball very well up, you get near the 18-yard box, and it goes to that one player. He doesn't pick out a good pass. He doesn't try and score. He doesn't try and take a player one-on-one. He just shields the ball and then plays it back to his center back or something. Now, again, at least he's retaining possession, but like I said, possession is useless if you don't do anything with it. The team can have 95% possession in a match, but if the match ends 0-0, what does the other team care? You know, or if they somehow nick a goal and it's 1-0. You have to do something with your possession, and that includes or entails taking risk. Okay, so that's my answer to that one. So again, try not to dribble in your defensive third near your 18-yard box unless you have to. And when you're in the attacking third and you have a defender isolated, I say give it a go. And again, this is only if you're dribbling and you have teammate wide open with a goal-scoring opportunity, then obviously play him. But I'm also saying, like, if you're on the wing and let's say you have your teammates behind you for the safe option, but then you only have one opponent in front of you and you could dribble, I'm saying in that situation, it would not be a bad idea to try and take that man on and not to be afraid to do that either, okay? So that's going to be the answer to the first question. We spent a bit of time on this one, but hopefully that makes sense. But remember, just add variety to your game. You don't always need to play simple, and you don't always need to dribble, because that makes you predictable. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, your opponents are going to anticipate you doing that the next time you get the ball, which you do not want. If your opponent can read you, they have you in their pocket, okay? So we're going to get into the next one. Next question, let's see. How to control the ball out of the air when there is a defender on you. All right. This is a good question, and it's a more advanced skill, I would say, being able to control the ball when you have a defender on you, because the defender is going to be jostling you, pushing you around, and if you take a bad touch, they're probably going to win the ball off you. So this is going to depend, where the ball is coming to you from. It's going to depend how high it is in the air and everything. But what I usually try and do, if the ball's coming in the air, I aim to stop the ball on my chest. Not actually stop it on my chest, but to control it with my chest. And the reason I do this is because, one, my opponent's not going to be, if the ball's at chest height and I control it at chest height, my opponent's not going to be able to usually get the ball at that point. Then it gives me a chance to feel where they are and shield the ball from them. And three, I don't know if any of you are good at the sombrero skill move, but it is actually personally one of my favorites. And this is something I learned specifically for these kind of situations. Because a lot of the time, again, when we're talking about unpredictability, a lot of the time when the ball's in the air, defenders expect you to do one of two things. One, just try and flick the ball on and hit it to a teammate, which is a hard skill to do, by the way, especially if it's not with your head. Or two, they expect you to stop the ball and try and shield it from them. So what I found will happen is a lot of defenders will get right on you and try and stop you from getting it to a teammate or something like that. So what I like to do is chest it and do a sombrero skill on them, which is essentially flipping the ball over their head and going out the other way. Now, I'm not saying do this every time. I'm not saying even try this if you can't. But if you are able to do that skill, that's going to come in handy in that situation. But generally, I would say try and bring it down on your chest. If it's a little lower, you might have to use your thigh. Or even your foot in some cases, but bring it down and shield it. Look for your teammate and then spin away back into space. You don't want to get too complicated with something like this. Again, my go-to unpredictable move in this situation is the sombrero, but it's not something I'll do every time. Generally, I will control the ball on my chest and bring it down. Something you have to realize, guys, especially when the ball's coming in the air, if the defender does his job right or her job right, when the ball comes in the air to you and they defend you well, you're going to have to pass the ball off. It's going to be very, very hard to beat them in that situation. It's not easy to do a move while the ball's in the air. Okay, so my best advice in that situation, bring it down, shield the ball, try and retain possession in that situation, pass it off, and then quickly move into some other space so you can get the ball back at your feet or get it to your teammate's feet, okay? So remember, when the ball's in the air, the important thing is you want to bring it to your feet as quickly as possible if you can, unless you're doing some kind of move, okay? So that answers that question. There's not really much more I can say about that. I already think I've repeated the same thing over and over again there. So we're going to move on to the next one. And the next one is how to contact an agent and get clubs interested in you. Okay, so this one is a little more tricky to go over, and in fact, I think the best thing to do is I'll explain it a little bit, but I'm going to link a video in the description with someone, a professional player actually, who talks about this topic, and I watched this video, and it's a really good video on how to contact an agent and what to do to, get him to be interested in you and all that. So I will link that video and I'll briefly go over it here. So how to contact an agent. Agents, when I think of an agent, agents want good players on their books. They want to be able to, because they get paid if they, at least I think most agents, if they get you on a team, right? They want players. They obviously want good players. They're only going to take on good players because those are the players with the best chances of making a professional team. But agents will sometimes just give out their phone numbers and have their contact information readily available and accessible because they want players contacting them. They want players who think they can be professionals contacting them, or who are already professionals contacting them, for the most part, simply because that's a part of their job. They can getting those players on teams and getting paid to do so. And you never know, a lot of, so many agents, we hear about agents like super agents who, like Pep Guardiola's brother, who's I think Suarez's agent, among other people, who we hear he's Suarez's agent and all that. He's going to be the agent to many, many players. I mean, agents have a ton of players on their books. So they're always looking for players, especially I think at the lower levels as well. So don't be afraid if you're not a professional, or if you're at the lower tiers of professional football, to find an agent. They probably can definitely help you. So I would say go to the linked video I've left for you. I think Will John was the guy's name, the professional player who made a very good video on finding agents, I think on LinkedIn and Facebook groups. I'm trying to remember if it was just LinkedIn or if he included Facebook groups. But take a look at that if you're interested in finding out how to contact an agent, get on board with him and, get some clubs looking at you. The second part of this question was get clubs interested in you. And this is a more difficult question to answer because I'm not entirely sure what you mean. Clubs, for the most part, I don't think usually, especially if you're already not on their books from a young age, come to you. Like clubs will send out scouting players. They'll go to youth events, youth tournaments, and things like that to try and find players. But basically, if they don't know about you, they can't have interest or disinterest in you. So that's why I think like getting an agent would be very helpful for that. So if you want to get clubs interested in you, the first part of that question, getting an agent, would be very, very helpful. So again, check the description for the link to Will John's video on this topic, which I think is really good and will give you a lot of what you need, a lot of the info you'll need to be able to get an agent and then get clubs interested in you, and you can follow that process as well. So these are all the questions I wrote down, but I remember one other question from the comments in my head, and it was basically how to make sure you don't ruin your career. This question's a little negative, but I'll tell you, I'm not sure exactly what you meant, like by ruin your career. I'm assuming you meant something, about injuries or, maybe about making sure you utilize your time so you don't, regret not doing something later. But essentially, I'll just say this, make the most of your time now for soccer. Don't tell yourself, I'll start training next week, or don't say, I'll train tomorrow when, because you don't want to train today. The time is probably the most precious commodity in the world, in your life, I would say, because it's really one of the only things you can't get back to, to the full extent of our knowledge right now. So really, wasted time is one of the biggest travesties when it comes to not getting things done. So don't waste your time. Give yourself the best opportunity to become a pro now, if that's what you're aiming for. So I don't care if you're 10, if you're 15, 25, there's no time like the present. Never say I'm too old, never say I'm too young. Just go out and try it. So if you're trying to get better, start making a schedule and practice every day. I mean, even if I'm 24 now, I could easily tell myself it's too late for a professional career. I could easily say that because, 24 is about the age where players start getting into the midway through their careers, right? But I won't say that. I'll train hard. I'll just keep trying until I get to it, or I'm too old to keep going, like in my 40s or something. But either way, I'm going to give it my all and try. Regret is going to be, a terrible thing. There are things in my life I regret not having done, and you don't want that. So make sure you start now. That's how you don't ruin. That's how you prevent yourself from ruining your career. By not at least trying to see if you could potentially have a career. So start working hard now. Start giving it your all now. Start, contacting the agents now, and start training now. There really isn't going to be, a later. If you catch my drift, you can't keep saying I'm going to do that later, or I'll do that tomorrow, or I'll do that next week. And this doesn't just go to soccer. We're about to get really deep with this. Well, not that deep, but this isn't really just pertaining to soccer. This is really anything. Don't put off the things you want to do. It could be regardless of how big or small the goal is. It could be something as simple as I want to improve my juggling to be able to get 200 in a row by this point, or it could be something as big as I want to become a professional footballer. It doesn't matter what the goal is, but just make sure you're taking that action and the steps you need to take to achieve that, and you're not wasting your time. So we're veering off the soccer path right now, which I don't want to do too much. So let's try and get back into it. I'm looking for some other questions here. Let me see. I think I actually have one right here. So let me see if I can find it. Okay, so here's another question. Says, as my question is, the player not playing for a professional academy, what steps can we do to market ourselves and contact teams to make a good video, just to get ourselves out there off the pitch? Okay, so I think this is a very similar question to the one we answered earlier, which was how to contact an agent, how to get teams interested in you, not playing for professional academies. So I'm guessing this is directed at younger players. Again, follow the advice I gave with the agent. Again, the video I linked in the description is a great starting point for this. If you want to get in contact with an agent who can help you, who can help market yourself and contact teams and everything. So one of the things an agent's going to want is a video of you playing. So I think Will John goes over this. I'm not sure in the video I supplied, but I'll give you a brief overview of what you probably want in your video. First and foremost, you want to give your information very quickly. What position you play, your age, all of those stats, your physical, your height, your physicals, your height, and all that. And you want to give like what team you play for, all that stuff as well. Anything else that's relevant to certain stats you want to put in there is fine as well. Next, you want to include relevant match highlights. I see some of these videos sometimes of people like, promotional videos of themselves, or, they'll send certain videos to colleges, and it'll be a lot of them practicing like by themselves. And this isn't necessarily bad, but, an agent's not going to be interested in seeing you practicing by yourself, because game dynamics are a lot different than you just practicing by yourself. There's a lot of things in games or in practicing by yourself that you can't demonstrate in games, or a lot of things that you'll need to demonstrate that you can't just by playing by yourself. So make sure you're only including like good match footage. Second, include the things that are relevant to your position, or the position you're saying you play most. So, for example, if you're a striker, you want to show mainly highlights of you scoring goals, highlights of you, holding the ball up, highlights of making good runs, highlights of, basically anything that would make a highlight reel. Like if you watched a highlight reel of a player, like if one of the big YouTubers, like was it Heil RJ, is it, I think? Or something like that. If he made a video of Ronaldo or Ronaldinho or something, he's not going to include certain highlights. He's not going to include Ronaldinho just running with the ball, chopping it back, and then passing it back to his defender. No, he's going to include highlights like Ronaldinho beating a player with a step over, or Ronaldinho doing some magical move, or Ronaldinho scoring a goal. He's going to include those highlights. Include the highlights that you would want to see if someone was to make a professional footballer highlight video. Like if I was to make a highlight video of Ronaldo or Messi, what is it that you want to see? Think of that and use those kind of highlights for your video. Now, the video shouldn't be too long. Remember, this agent, probably is getting a lot of, you have to think of it from the perspective of the agent. If he's a football agent who gives out his contact information regularly, he's not going to have too much time to spend on you. You need to impress him early, hook him early, put your good highlights in the beginning, and make it short. Only include your good highlights, in fact. Do not have a 10-minute video. Do not have a 15-minute video. Have a 5 or under minute video. 5 minutes or less is probably the sweet point, and even that could be a little long. If you only have 3 to 4 minutes of good highlights, that's how long your video should be. Don't make it 5 minutes just to make it 5 minutes, okay? And again, only include good highlights. I know we all have pride in ourselves playing. Like when I watch video footage of myself playing and I do something, just like dribble the ball and pass it, I'll think it's the coolest thing ever. But you have to kind of take away that biased mindset and just go, okay, if someone else was watching this, would they say that was good? Okay, so that's what you want to think when you're making your highlight video, because I'm sure I don't know, shooting the ball from 25 yards and missing looks cool to me, but an agent's not going to want to see that. He's going to want to see my goals, my assists, how well I play my position, et cetera, et cetera. Because you're basically, you're advertising yourself, okay? So if you are making a video for an agent, that's what you want to do. So that's kind of the steps you want to take. Who asked me that question? I don't think I can pronounce your name. It's Amin Seidel? Is that what it says? Siddle Football? That's the answer to your question. If you're not playing for a professional academy and you want to market yourself, getting an agent, sending him a video like I just went over. And again, please, everyone who has interest in contacting agents or anything like that, please look at the video I've supplied for you. I'll put it under how to contact an agent or how to get an agent. Under there, look at that video by Will John, and he'll explain to you how to do this, okay? Just a thing to mention, I guess I'll end on this because what are we at time-wise? We got about 25 minutes in, and we want to make these podcasts about 30. I don't care if we go a little over or under, but we're going to try and keep it around that point. So, one of the things you said is you're not playing for a professional academy. I feel like a lot of players think if they're not in an academy, like a professional academy, that they're not good enough or they're not going to make it. Guys, this is not true. Most players who are in academies get dropped by teams, get cut before they never get given professional contracts. It's only a small percentage of players who actually go on to play full-fledged professional football from academies. So if you're not in an academy, don't worry. That doesn't mean that they're, infinitely better than you. It's just they were spotted by the club. It looked like they had potential, and sometimes they never fulfill it for whatever reasons. Maybe attitude problems, they don't work hard enough, or maybe they just weren't good enough. You never know. Although I would say that if you work hard enough, you can make yourself good enough. So having said that, if you're not in an academy and you don't have these coaches telling you how to play, coach yourself, learn for yourself. Watch videos on my channel or there's a lot of good soccer channels on YouTube. Look up information on how to get better on Google. Look up information and then put in the work, take action steps, learn what does it, learn to be consistent, learn to develop a schedule that's going to help you improve in the certain areas you think you need improvement on. Always be working on your game and being, scrutinize your game all the time so you can be like, okay, I need to improve in this area and that area. Let go of your pride. Don't say something like, I'm just good at everything. Really tell yourself, okay, I could use work in this area. So if you, for example, have a weak left foot, tell yourself that and go, okay, so how are we going to work on this? Let's work on this. Okay, so don't worry if you're not in a professional academy. The majority of players are not in professional academies. And, there are still many players who don't go through the academy system that become professionals. It doesn't mean you can't become a professional. You still can. Just make sure you keep working hard, keep learning, keep improving, and you can definitely make it. So again, watch the video by Will John. I think we're going to leave it there as far as the questions. I guess I'll just kind of wrap it up here. Guys, remember, one of the most important things about these podcasts is I can go in depth with your questions. I can only make certain, so many videos, and I can only make them so long. So, I get a ton of video requests, and I can't possibly make them all. And I sometimes, if I, and I also have to like the idea. I have to think the idea is something that's actually going to help you guys get better, something that I should be covering. And a lot of you guys actually do have a lot of good ideas on videos that should be made. And I agree with a lot of the ones you guys send me and request. The only problem is, again, I can only make a certain amount of videos. I already have videos made. I already have, a list of videos I'm making, a long list. And keep sending me your suggestions. But if you want your questions answered in depth, this is the best place to ask them. So again, put them all in the comments down there. All right, so that's where you can leave your questions. Don't be afraid to ask me anything. I will try and get to your question. And guys, thank you for staying to the end. Now, if you made it to the end, we're gonna do a little bit something different with the hashtag here. There was a few of you that put the "I made it" hashtag. I'm applauding. Now I'll even give you. There you go. I'm getting an applause there. Because I'm very impressed that anyone made it to the end and listened to this all the way through. And if you've done it again, good job. It definitely proves to me that you're very willing to learn and you take this very seriously. So thank you very much, and you should be proud of yourself for that. Okay, so we're gonna make it something similar. Let me think what I should have had something prepared, but I don't. I'll have to think of something off the spot. So it was I made it. We'll just do I made it ×2 or something. Nah, that's silly. Let's see. Let me think for a sec, and I'll give you what we want here. Okay, just put something like hashtag I survived. And that'll let me know that you made it all the way to the end here. So hashtag I survived in the comments along with whatever question you want answered. Again, you don't have to ask a question, but it's a good opportunity to have a question that you want answered. Okay, guys, so thank you for listening in. This has been the second podcast. We're going to be doing these every week on Wednesdays. I know the last one was on Thursday. That was because of some things that happened that was preventing me from making videos. So from now on, I'm going to try and get these podcasts out on Wednesday. So that's when you can expect them to be here. And we'll keep answering your questions. I might do ones on, I might do a podcast all on one question if it's a really good question that I can go really in depth with, or I might do more that have many questions like this one. It's gonna depend on the question. It's gonna depend on the week. So we'll be doing a bunch of things with these. So once again, thanks for listening all the way. I mean, if you're new to Simply Soccer and you made it all the way to the end, you are absolutely awesome, and you should definitely subscribe because we're gonna be doing this every week. And we also have other videos on the channel that come out every single week to help you improve. So hit that big old red subscribe button. Also, make sure you like this video and also share this video. Guys, sharing actually helps get these videos around more than you know. So just share it with your friends and teammates especially, or anyone that can get some kind of value out of it. All right, guys, so that's where we're going to leave it off. Thank you for tuning in to the second Simply Soccer hashtag. Simply Soccer podcast. I just meant to say, remember, put hashtag I survived if you made it all the way to the end. That will let me know that you made it to the end. So good job. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening one more time, and I will talk to you all again on the next podcast.